I love her to death. She was a sweet lady. Let's welcome Captain America, Lisa Beer. You too. I'm gonna get you later. I'm gonna get you now.
Well, congratulations for making it a year.
Yep.
My name's Lisa. I'm an alcoholic. a.k.a. Captain America.
Yeah.
Depending on where you at, Captain Save-A-Ho.
Same thing.
It's bad. Listen, it's bad when you go to the Gaston County Jail and some woman says, I know you. You work at Charlotte Paint and they call you Captain Save-A-Ho. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, y'all know the deal. I got a sponsor. He's got a sponsor. And my sobriety date is December 24th, 2011.
Nice.
And I found this cute little joke that I want to share with you.
Oh, yeah.
It was this alcoholic that went into a bar and he ordered 2 shots. And when he got the first one, he took it and he poured it out all over the bar top. And he drank the second one. So then he calls the bartender back and he says, give me 2 more shots. So he gives him 2 more shots. He takes the first one, he pours it out all over the bar, and he drinks the second one. He said, dude, why do you pour them shots out all over the daggone bar? And he said, because they taught, he said, I'm in an AA group and they told me not to drink the first one. Well, this place brings back memories for me because I started out in Celebrate Recovery, went to NA, and ended up in AA. And this was my debut at AA. I sat right over there where she sat, and I didn't talk to nobody. I didn't want to talk to nobody. I was a nervous wreck, and I don't know why, because I've been in the NA, but I had my particular groups in the NA, you know. Y'all know how it is. You can find anything you want to in it, NA or AA. But if you want recovery, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So I had my select NA meetings that I'd go to after I got a year in Celebrate Recovery. In Celebrate Recovery, it kind of got a little too churchy for me, to be honest. And so my sister, who's an addict, she needed a sponsor. She was at Dove's Nest. And she asked me if I'd be her sponsor. I said, I can't be your sponsor. I said, and she said, yeah, you can. All you got to do is have a year of sobriety and have worked the 12 steps. And I said, yeah, but I ain't never worked the NA 12 steps. She said, don't matter, we're not going to tell them that. She said, we're not going to tell them we're sisters neither. I said, okay. I agreed to it. You know? So I started taking her to NA meetings, and she got this knack for picking out her NA meetings too, you know. And I liked the ones that she picked out. They had a lot of bad behavior going on in them, the same kind I did. And anybody that's ever heard my story knows what happened with me in NA meetings. And we won't talk about that, but it has to do with the number 13.
That's my girl.
So anyhow, we'd go to the meetings and stuff. And, next thing I know, I was taking all kind of girls out to meetings, and then Y'all don't make me get to laughing now. Y'all make me forget where I'm at. I started taking them all to meetings, and then the next thing you know, I was an NA sponsor. And I always tell everybody, my sponsor was an idiot back then because it was me. And I was my own sponsor. Don't do that. It don't work well. And so that's how I started out. Well, I had everybody tell me, man, who's your sponsor? I ain't got no sponsor. Well, you need a sponsor. I ain't got no sponsor. Well, if you're going to take girls through the steps, you need to get a sponsor. So I had this friend that worked there in Dove's Nest, and I asked her, I said, you know, I've been doing pretty good by myself. You know, I had like 2.5 years clean time, and I said, you think I need a sponsor? She said, yeah, you need a sponsor. If you take girls through the darn steps, you need to have went through them with a sponsor too. And I said, well, I knew her story, and I just knew she was in NA. And she sure did put a shocker on me. She said, I said, you be my sponsor? She said, yeah, but you're going to have to go through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And she said, I don't care if you still go to your NA meetings, but you got to go to AA meetings too. And I agreed. I don't know why. When I went home, and I was in this relationship, and they said they didn't like me when I drank and did drugs. So they wanted me to get some help. So I went to, I think maybe 2 AA meetings. I'm not really sure. I know I went to one because they smoked in the meeting when I went. And I told them, I said, I ain't going back to their meetings. Why not? I said, because all they do is tell old war stories, and they make me want to drink and do drugs. I ain't going back. But the truth was, that wasn't the truth at all. They was trying to share their experience, strength, and hope with me. But I didn't want to hear that. All I want to do is continue using and drinking. So I used it for a crutch. Well, when she said I had to do this AA stuff, I had this little thing going on with me. And I don't know why, because I didn't stay in AA long enough to know nothing about it. And, I told her I'd do whatever she said do. And so I did. So I knew this girl that lived over here in Belmont that I used to take the meetings at the Dove's Nest, and I said, hey, you know where any AA meetings are on Sunday after church? She said, yeah, right down there at the hut. And so I said, well, you go with me to them, because I was scared. I don't know why I was scared. I was scared. And y'all don't bite, and if you do, it ain't hard. So I got her, and we came over here, and I sat over there, and I never participated, didn't listen. Oh, well, I did listen, but I didn't feel like I was listening. I didn't feel like I was getting anything, to be honest, because I didn't feel like I was doing anything. And I felt uncomfortable, wouldn't read the readings. I just sat there. And so my sponsor, she asked me if I'd go to this meeting that where her sponsor was picking up a chip, you know. And I told her no. I said, I can't, man, I got other plans on that night. I can't go. And I could hear this disappointment in her voice. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was being selfish. And that was unusual because I'd never felt selfish before, you know. And so I got to thinking about it, and I canceled my plans, and I called her back, and I said, I'm going to go to that meeting with you. And she just sounded like she lit up like a Christmas tree. She was all glad I was going. So I wasn't convinced of you guys yet. So when I get to this meeting, it was over there on Hoffman at that church. And that's where I first met Mark Lineberger, who's not with us anymore. Wow. And she had this speaker that spoke for her. And I'm telling you guys, that woman told my whole life story standing up there, and I've never had that experience before in my life. But she told that her whole life story, it matched up with mine, and then she said this one profound statement that I have never forgotten to this day. She said, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. And I knew at that moment I had a solution for everything that was going on in my life. And I love page 417 of the big book. I got it highlighted and I read it a lot. So that was my big epiphany right off the get-go. We're standing outside. Now, my worst chapter in the big book was the doctor's opinion. I hated that chapter. And my sponsors made me read it like 2 or 3 or 4 times, I don't know. And she said, why do you not like that chapter? I said, because I don't like doctors. And I was lying. Because the truth was, I wanted my sponsor to think I was smart. And I didn't understand it. Because I'm allergic to bees. And if I get stung in 15 minutes, I can die. And when I drink alcohol, it don't do me that way. I might feel like I'm dead, but it don't kill me. And so I couldn't comprehend alcohol was some kind of allergy, you know. So we standing out there and they having their little meeting after the meeting and smoking their cigarettes and stuff. And Mr. Lineberger told my sponsor, said, you know, she ought to come to that big book study down there at the club. And well, she said, yeah, that's a good idea. But what I heard was, yeah, she needs to go to that meeting. So it was my day off, and I didn't want to go to that meeting. I figured I done go to enough AA meetings by coming over here on Sundays. And she never did ask me how many meetings I went to. She just asked me if I went to a meeting. I said, yeah. So, I get over there, and they was talking about the darn doctor's opinion. And I was so mad in my mind, I was thinking, they set this up. They knew how much I hated that chapter. She sent me over there just when they was reading it. I'm getting the heck out of it. So I'm getting ready to really get up and walk out of there just because of that. Because I done ate up this thing in my head that how they was making me go to that, so I could hear all about that, blah, 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 you know. And this guy, he started talking about the allergy of alcohol. And he said, you know, in an alcoholic, he said there's when we drink, it don't affect us like it does people that drinks normally. And he said there's this chemical that gets released, and that chemical is what causes us to have the phenomenon of the craving. So after our brains start thinking about it long enough, and we pick up that first drink and put it in our body, then it starts having that effect on us, and we just can't stop it one. And I was like, dang. And I was like, that's pretty awesome, you know. And I think I'll sit back down and shut up and listen some more. And I've been doing that ever since. And I love that big book meeting down there at the 12 step. I was always down there, and I like fixing the breakfast and stuff. I hate that it ain't there now, but everything has a reason. So I did that for a while, and let me tell you a little about when I had my first drink. When I had my first drink, I was little. I don't know how old I was, to be honest with you, but I do remember that first drink that made me get this feeling. You know, I didn't know that the feeling was the effects of alcohol, but I liked the way that it felt, because it made me dizzy head, and the room was spinning around. And what happened was my mom, I came from a poor family, but we didn't know Miss Poor, you know. The highlights of our week was if we got to go to McDonald's or if we got a frozen pizza for supper. And so my mom, we didn't go to the doctor often, and because we couldn't afford a lot. Because my dad, he was one of them milkman, go get milk and not come back for days, you know. So he was very abusive too. And so if you had a toothache or something like that, my mom would give us Tahitian treat mixed with gin. And she mixed mine too strong this particular time. And I slept on the top bunk bed. She spent half the night worried about me going to fall out of the top bunk bed because I was all high off that alcohol. So that was my first experience that I remember at. The first time that I had a blackout experience was I was in middle school, and I had found my grandma and my grandpa's liquor stash. See, all this time I thought my granddad was going out to the building with a glass of tea. He was having what he called a toddy.
Yeah.
Every day he did the same thing. He'd come home from work, he got his toddy, went out to his building, he worked. When he come back in, my grandma had his supper fixed and everything. They ate and watched TV and went to bed. That was their daily ritual. I never seen them argue. Heck, I didn't even know they drank. But my grandma died from cirrhosis of the liver. My granddaddy didn't. He died from a heart attack. But I thought he hated me because he made me work in the garden, and if I didn't work in the garden, I didn't eat out in the garden. He taught me how to go out in the woods and get wood, put it in the truck, bring it back, stack it up, split it up. I started with a darn wedge and a sledgehammer. And when I graduated to an axe, I chewed the handle up. So one Christmas, when all the other kids got Christmas presents, I got a brand new axe handle. Yeah, I thought he didn't like me. So he was really hard on me. But what I realized when I got older and I got some sobriety in me and stuff was that he saw something in me that he didn't see in the rest. Something that I couldn't even see myself. I was always called bad, you know, and I never did fit in anywhere when I was growing up. I stayed in fights all the time in school because they called me names. Y'all can imagine. I had this blue jean jacket one time, and it had boys and girls' names wrote on it. You know, I'm giving my age away now, ain't I? Where they was this fad that went by, and you signed the blue jean jackets, and so some of them had their names underlined and some of them didn't. So I was in biology class, and I won't never forget that woman, Beverly Barber. Lord help. She was sitting over there in her little desk, and Patricia said, "Can I sign your shirt?" I said, "Sure you can." And Beverly said, "Don't you sign her jacket. You see some of them names is underlined under it? Well, that's the ones she's done got. The ones that ain't underlined, she ain't had yet." And I said, "Oh, shut up. You just mad because I ain't letting you sign it." And y'all know what happened, right? I got in trouble because when the teacher came in, she didn't see the girl getting up trying to fight with me. He saw me on her desk with my hands on it. So I got in trouble for that, and that ain't the only time I got in trouble. I stayed in trouble. I was a rebel. I'm still a rebel. I am not a good father. I don't think I ever will be. So Linda better get used to it.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's how I grew up in school, fighting and carrying on. Well, when I was in school and I found my granddaddy and them's stash, it was Canadian Mist. They kept it in the gallon, so I knew they wouldn't miss much. So I took a quart mayonnaise jar, and I filled it up. I carried it to school. me and my cousin, we was gonna drink it. We was gonna stage a fight so we could get expelled. Because we smoked pot back then too, but we had to sneak to do that. So you know, we didn't have to go to school. We didn't have to sneak around too much. So we had about half of it drank by the time we got to PE class. In PE class, they had us out on the baseball field, and we were sitting in the dugout, and that half was left in that jar, and she dared me. Y'all like to get there, right?
Oh, yeah.
You gotta do it, right? She said, I dare you to drink the other half of that down in one swallow. And I downed it like it wasn't nobody's business. And I didn't even get sick. Till later. But we got in a real fight, and we got expelled. And the next class was study hall. And it was in the library.
Oh, Lord.
All right. Let me tell you, I am loud and obnoxious when I drink. And when I got in that library, all I remember is my friend saying, you need to quiet down. And the librarian go, shh, shh. Y'all know.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. It was terrible. So finally, she done told me that enough, and I got to go to the bathroom. And I told her, I said, hey, I gotta take a leak. She said, go. So there's a bathroom right there next to the library, and I don't go to that. Nah. I go out down the hall, out the door, across the breezeway into the high school building, and go into their bathroom. Now they got concrete floors in there. And I'm in there, and all of a sudden, I feel sick. So I get down there and I hug that golden throne, and I throw up, and then I passed out. And then I'd come to, and I'd throw up, and I'd pass out. And I did that until I didn't wake back up, and somebody found me laying in the floor in there, and they got the principal involved and all, and they call my mom. My mom takes me to the doctor, because she don't know what's wrong yet. The principal ain't gave her all the details. He probably because he didn't know them all. So she takes me to our little doctor's office. It's kind of like his doctor's office and an urgent care all in one in Fort Mill. And they bring me in there and they give me these shots and stuff, and they tell my mom she's lucky to be alive. She got alcohol poison so bad that we didn't think she'd live. And so I gotta tell y'all this. Y'all know that movie that dude that JJ plays, you know, the dynamite guy?
Good times.
JJ Walker.
Yeah. So he did a movie where he had leukemia in it, right? And near the end of it, he's in the doctor's office. And I don't know why that's run through my brain at the time. But they pushed the wheelchair in there. And he said, what's that for? And I said, well, to take you out. And he said, I'm going to walk out of this place. So y'all know what I was saying. They pushed the wheelchair in there so they could take me out and put me back in my mom's car. And I said, what's that for? And they said, take you out to the car. I said, I ain't riding in that thing. I'm walking out of here. And the nurses and all, they looked at each other like they knew what was about to go down. And I went to get off of that darn cot, and I busted my rear end. I said, I think I'll ride in that. So that was my first little experience with blacking out. You know, you would think that when you experience something like that at that age, you know, that you wouldn't want nothing else to do with it, because that was man, I'm gonna tell you what, that hangovers ain't got nothing on alcohol poison. I don't know how many's had alcohol poison in here, but it is not fun. And that's the worst kind of sick I ever experienced in my life. And you know what? I couldn't wait to do it again. And one of my clients, he made this comment one day, and I've always remembered it because it says a lot for me. And he said, you know, he said, I was an addict before I ever used. I said, really? How did you know that? He said, because I had addictive behavior before I ever picked up the first drug or the first drink. And I was the same way, you know. Man, I don't know what's wrong with my pleasure zone up there, but every time I do something I like, it's way too much. Whatever it is, I don't care what it is. So, that's the way I've lived my life, doing whatever I want to do. You know, that slogan, if it feels good, do it. Yeah. I'm giving my age away again. So anyhow, where was I at there? I went through school at, I did a lot of crazy stuff. We'd be in here half the night if I told you all the crazy stuff I done. But I did some really crazy stuff. But what happened to me was, I got tired of being sick and tired, you know what I mean? And I don't know how to explain that any other way than that. Like, what used to make me feel good and have a good time made me feel depressed. And made me feel all kind of different ways. And so, you know, I used to hear people in here say, well, the alcohol stopped working. I'm thinking, alcohol ain't never stopped working on me. I could always get a buzz, you know? So what do they mean by that? And I don't know what the persons that have said it meant, but what it means to me is the effects that I was getting from the relief or whatever I was drinking for, they stopped working. The alcohol quit covering it up. It quit making me feel good, you know? And I got tired of that. And so I quit. And then I start back. And I quit because I could control this stuff. You know? I could do it all by myself. I said a numerous amount of times. And so all my friends and family, if I said I was quitting, they said, yeah, for how long? So I did that for a while, and then somebody said, well, why don't you try Jesus? I said, okay, well, what I got to lose? Well, I'll tell you guys, I love my higher power, but that didn't work for me alone. I've been through numerous amounts of stuff with churches and stuff, and I've had church hurt, and I've been in and out and stuff. Well, I've even been a youth pastor, and I got drunk when I was a youth pastor. And so it just didn't work like that for me. It worked for a while, but after a while, I find myself in some kind of bad behavior, and then I'd get back and I'd start drinking or doing drugs. So I said, you know, if I could find something that was like a mixture between church and AA, I might give that a shot. And then somebody told me about Celebrate Recovery, so I tried it. And I used to go over here to Catawba Heights. And it was pretty interesting, and then I tried to do it at the church that I went to, and it ended up like a Sunday school class. And so we moved on. But so this one time I was sitting in an AA meeting, and a guy said, you know, some people can get sober off of Jesus in church, and some people can get sober off of AA, but some people need them both. And I'm one of them people that needs them both. And so that's, you guys, you know, are the ones that's helped keep me sober and stuff. So, I got into NA, as I told y'all, and then I ended up in AA, and I celebrated my 3-year sobriety when I was in AA, and I've been coming here ever since to AA. And I really love you guys, and I really I found a place where I fit in. That I don't feel like I stick out, you know. I feel comfortable with you guys, you know. I don't never feel like I'm being judged, and you like my family, you know. And that's the way I feel about the AA. And no matter what AA meeting I go, I get that same feeling from everybody. It's not any different here as it is in Lincolnton or in Hickory or anywhere else. I get that same feeling. I feel like I'm wanted and I'm loved, and those things are things that I need in my life. I have to feel like I'm connected, and I have to feel loved, you know, and or something's off of me. And so when let's see where I want to go from there. Thank you. That's when you have fun. So the last time I spoke here, I think my mother had passed away. Had just passed away, actually. And, you know, my mom, because of that going out, coming in, going out, coming in kind of thing, my mom, she didn't come see me pick up a chip until I picked up my 7-year chip. I guess she didn't think that I was going to stay sober. She waited for 7 years to make sure. But she got to see me sober, you know, and I'm grateful for that. My dad, you know, I used to start off these meetings talking about my dad and him being an alcoholic and how abusive he was and how much I didn't want to be like him. And I turned out just like him. Mm-hmm. And then he passed away, and I was standing by his bed. I felt like my higher power said, "Go over there and look at him real good." I'm thinking, what? So I walked over there, and I got to tell y'all. Now his wife that he was married to when he passed away, him, my brother, and her both were there when he had his heart attack. And they didn't know how to do CPR. Mm. So when he went out, he fell on the floor. They picked him up, put him in the chair, and tried to do CPR. Oh, God. Y'all know his stomach blowed up, right? The nurses or nobody didn't have the heart to tell that woman that she did it when she was trying to do CPR, setting him in the chair. But they didn't shut his eyes, man. And so when I went in the hospital room to see his body, his eyes were open. Yeah. And I was standing over there, and I looked down at him, and you know, all this time I've always thought about the negative stuff about my dad. If I get emotional on y'all just gonna have to overlook me. But I looked down at my dad, and I took a good hard look at him, and I said, "Dang, my nose looks exactly like his." Now, I don't know where this stuff was coming from. And then I looked at his cheeks, and I said, his cheekbones and mine just alike. I said, darn, his hair grows like mine. His hairline was like mine. I grew sideburns like him. And so the last thing I did is I reached over and I looked at his hair, and his hair was the same color of mine. And I run my fingers through his hair, and his hair was thick like mine. Felt just like when I run my hands through my hair, you know. And all this time, I talked about all the negative stuff about how I was like him in the negative ways, and I never thought about any of the positive ways. But you know, you guys help me see things in a different way. You give me a different perspective. You know, when I come to meetings and I listen to you guys, and I go to these book studies and stuff, and I work them steps, they all give me a different perspective on the way that I see things, the way I do life. And it's been a big change for me. And people like me better now. I get invited to places. Yeah. So when my mom passed away, I wasn't sad, and I was grateful that she didn't have to suffer anymore and all. I was sad because I miss her, and I still do occasionally. When I'm doing certain things, I remember. But she didn't go out, she didn't suffer, and I was grateful I got to spend a week with her before she passed away. And I didn't get to see my mom very much, but we talked often on the phone, Well, I went through both of those deaths, and I didn't have to touch a drop. I didn't have to do no kind of drugs to help me go through the emotions or anything. I went through them things. And you guys were there for me when I went through those things. I got phone calls so much that I quit answering my phone, and then everybody thought I was isolating. And they chewed me out for that. So when I was in the 10th grade, I'd been in the 10th grade for like 2 weeks, and I decided that it was time to graduate to college. I did. Went through a softball team. Them girls knew how to party. And it was more fulfilling for me at the time to go hang out with them and be the life of their party. Or the laugh of their party is more like it. And they let me stay there for a while, but then when it was time, they sent me packing, while they still did whatever they did. But today, I went back and got my GED. And then, good Lord help me, I started college. And I get to work with, I get to go to the jails all the time, and I get to work in a field what I love. And I work for Linda Beatty, Help Me Jesus. No, she's good to work with. But I get to meet other addicts, other alcoholics, and I get to help them. And I enjoy that, I know one thing. I know that service work is vital to my recovery, and I sure get my dose of it. And it makes me feel good to be able to help somebody else. It really does. It's a feeling like I don't know if anybody in here can explain it, but it gives you a good feeling. I went through a breakup, and then I got depressed, and I wanted to die. Y'all been there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And y'all pulled me out of that stuff too. It was crazy. I was in my 7-year sobriety when I felt like that. And I read this, and I realized I need something else out of these steps. And I added a sponsor, which was a good thing because my old sponsor relapsed, but she's back in now. But I read this thing that said we were having trouble with personal relationships, and I was. We couldn't control our emotional natures, and I couldn't. Y'all know how it is when you get angry? Yeah, it wasn't good for me. We were prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness, and we were full of fear. We were unhappy, and we couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. And man, when I read that this particular day, I thought, man, that is me. That's where I feel like I am in life. And I got to do something. So the sponsor I have now, I ask him if he'd take me through the steps the way he goes through the steps. Because that man knows the big book. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to know the big book like he did. And So one of the things that he taught me was about how to get up in the morning, how to address my morning with my higher power. And so one of the things that I love to do is ask God every morning to divorce myself from self-pity and self-seeking ways. And I love the third step prayer, I have it on my mirror in my lingo. And this is the way mine reads. God, I offer myself to you to build with me and to do with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do your will. Take away my difficulties that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of your power, your love, and your way of life. May I do your will always. But you know what, that prayer, the first time I prayed it and really saw what it said, it scared the bejeebus out of me. Because it said, I'm giving him permission to do whatever he wants to, you know. But it's pretty awesome. I don't always like it, but it's pretty awesome. It turns out pretty good. So there's two things I want to leave you guys with that I've learned in my recovery. And the first thing is comparing my insides with someone else's outsides is a pointless waste of time and energy.
Right.
And the second thing is the only valid comparison I can make is between me of today and the me I used to be. Mm-hmm. And this will tell me all I need to know to keep recovering. Mm-hmm. Thank you for letting me.
Thank you.